The morning sun shone bright over the fields of Kepler 442b. Yulter stood on his balcony and watched the young Rilani workers tend to their crops. Their pale blue skin glowed softly in the sunlight. The patterns on their arms changed colors. As they talked to each other without words, this was how life had been for 200 years on their world. Simple, peaceful, good. Yulter was old, even for a Rilani. He had lived through many seasons and seen many changes. But nothing had prepared him for what was coming. The communication device on his table made a sharp sound. Yulter picked it up with his long, thin fingers. The message was short, but it made his heart cold. "We are the hegemony of Korth. Your world now belongs to us. You have 30 days to leave. If you stay, you will die." Yulter read the message 3 times. His skin patterns turned dark blue with fear. He had heard of the hegemony. Everyone in the galaxy had. They were 4 different alien races that worked together to take worlds from weaker people. They had ships that could destroy planets. They had soldiers that showed no mercy. Yulter called for Ninwi, a young engineer who was smart and brave. She came running when she heard the worry in his voice. "What is wrong, Elder?" Ninwi asked. Her skin showed yellow patterns of concern. Yulter showed her the message. Ninwi's patterns turned the same dark blue as his. "We must call for help." She said, "The Federation will protect us. We have been good trade partners for 50 years. Yulter wanted to believe her. The Galactic Federation was supposed to keep peace between different worlds. They had many powerful members. Surely they would help. He sent the first message to the Federation Council. Then he sent messages to other alien races they had known for years. The Vorkani had bought their grain. The Theshan Republic had traded their crystals. Even their old enemies, the Metallic Collective, might help for the right price. Days passed. The answers came back one by one. The Federation Council was the first to reply. "We cannot risk war with the hegemony over one small world. We suggest you accept their offer to relocate your people." Yulter felt like someone had hit him in the stomach. Relocate? This was their home. Their ancestors were buried in this soil. Their crystal networks had grown deep into the planet's core over centuries. The Vorkani message was shorter. "Sorry, cannot help. Hegemony too strong." The Theshan Republic did not even bother to be polite. "Your people chose weakness. Now face the results." More messages came. All said the same thing. No one would help. No one would fight. The Rilani were alone. Ninwi worked day and night to find other options. She contacted mining companies, hoping they might want to keep the planet's workers. She reached out to religious groups, thinking they might care about saving innocent lives. She even tried to hire mercenaries with what little money their world had. Nothing worked. "They are all afraid," Ninwi told Yulter after another failed attempt. Her skin patterns showed bright red anger. "They would rather let us die than risk making the hegemony angry." Ships began arriving at their world, but not to help. Other alien races sent ships to take away their own people. The Federation sent a transport to remove their trade station. The Vorkani took their equipment. Even small companies pulled out. Their workers, each ship that left took a piece of hope with it. The worst moment came when Ambassador Krelvin from the Federation arrived. He was a tall, gray alien with cold eyes. He came to Yulter's office with official papers. "The Federation Council has voted," Krelvin said. His voice showed no emotion. "We recognize the hegemony's claim to this world. You are no longer under Federation protection." Yulter's skin went completely white. "You are abandoning us?" "We are being realistic," Krelvin replied. "Your people never built weapons. You never joined our military. You gave us food and crystals, but when war comes, food cannot stop plasma cannons. We chose peace because we believed it was right," Yulter said. "And now you will pay the price for that choice," Krelvin said. He left the papers on the desk and walked away. That night, Yulter stood again on his balcony. The fields below were full of Rilani families. Children played games where their skin patterns flashed bright colors. Parents worked together to harvest the evening crops. Grandparents told old stories that made everyone's patterns glow warm yellow with happiness. In 25 days, the hegemony would arrive. These people would all be dead or scattered across the galaxy as refugees. Their culture would die. Their world would become a mining operation. Yulter closed his eyes and tried to accept it. Maybe this was how things had to be. Maybe the strong always won and the weak always lost. But then something strange happened. Ninwi came running up the stairs. Her skin patterns flashed bright white with excitement. "Elder, look at the long-range sensors." Yulter followed her to the communication center. On the screen, he saw something that made no sense. A fleet of ships was coming toward their world. They were not hegemony ships. The design was different, simpler, almost crude compared to the sleek vessels of the major powers. "Who are they?" Yulter asked. Ninwi checked the computer. "The signal says they are humans?" Yulter had heard that name before. Humans were a new race that had just discovered faster-than-light travel. They were from the edge of the galaxy. Most aliens thought they were primitive and unimportant. "How many ships?" Yulter asked. 47, Nimue replied. It was not a large fleet. The hegemony would bring over 200 ships, but it was more help than anyone else had offered. "Are they coming to trade?" Yulter wondered. Nimue shook her head. "No, Elder, they sent a message. They say they heard about our situation. They say they are coming to help us fight." Yulter. Skin patterns began to glow. For the first time in days, they showed a hint of hope. The human ships dropped out of hyperspace like falling stars. Yulter watched from the planet's surface as 47 vessels appeared in the sky above their world. They were not beautiful ships like the Federation cruisers or deadly like hegemony. Warships. They looked like they had been built from spare parts and hope. The largest ship was called the New Soul. It had once been a colony transport, but now it bristled with weapons that looked like they had been added by someone in a hurry. Other ships in the fleet were even stranger. Some looked like cargo haulers with gun turrets welded to their sides. Others were clearly civilian ships that someone had tried to turn into warships, but they were here. When every other race in the galaxy had turned away, these humans had come. Captain Li Tae-min stood on the bridge of the New Soul and looked down at the blue-green world below. He was a tall man with kind eyes and gray hair. He had served in Earth's military for 20 years before joining the colonial fleet. Now he commanded a group of volunteers who had left their homes to help people they had never met. "Sir," said his communications officer, a young woman named Park So-young, "we're getting a message from the planet. They want to meet with us." "Tell them we'll send a diplomatic team," Lee replied. "And make sure Dr. Kim is ready." Dr. Kim Haijin was the fleet's expert on alien cultures. She had studied every known race in the galaxy and could speak 12 different languages. She was also one of the few humans who truly understood why they were here. "Are you sure about this, Captain?" asked Commander Yoon Jae-sung, Lee's second. "In command, we're outnumbered 4-1. Our ships are old. Our weapons are basic. This could be suicide." Lee looked at the peaceful world below. "Maybe, but someone has to make a stand. If we don't fight for what's right, who will?" Dr. Kim prepared for the meeting with care. She studied everything they knew about the Rilani. They were tall and thin with pale blue skin that could change colors to show emotions. They were peaceful people who had never developed advanced weapons. They grew food and mined crystals and lived simple lives. The shuttle that took her to the planet was piloted by Sergeant Park Jun-ho, a tough Marine, who volunteered for dangerous missions. He had short black hair and scars on his hands from many battles. "Think they'll trust us?" Park asked as they flew toward the planet's capital city. "Would you trust aliens who showed up claiming they wanted to help?" Dr. Kim replied. "Good point." The Rilani capital was beautiful. The buildings were made of crystal that caught the sunlight and threw rainbows everywhere. Gardens grew between the structures and the air smelled like flowers. It was the kind of place that made you understand why someone would fight to protect it. Yulter and Nimue met them at the landing pad. Dr. Kim was surprised by how tall the Rilani were. Yulter was almost 7 feet high, but he moved like an old tree bending in the wind. Ninwi was younger and stronger, but her skin patterns showed she was very worried. "Welcome to our world," Yolter said in careful English. "I am Elter, Elder of the Rilani. This is Ninwi, our chief engineer." "I'm Dr. Kim Hyjin," she replied. "This is Sergeant Park Junho. We represent the human fleet." They walked through the city as they talked. Rilani children stopped their games to stare at the strange aliens. Their skin patterns flashed bright colors with curiosity. Dr. Kim waved at them, and some waved back, their patterns turning warm yellow. "Why did you come?" Yolter asked suddenly. "Everyone else left. Everyone else abandoned us." "Why are humans different?" Dr. Kim thought about how to answer. "My species has a saying. The only thing needed for evil to win is for good people to do nothing. We couldn't live with ourselves if we did nothing." Ninwi's patterns flashed bright white with surprise. "But you barely know us. And the hegemony has over 200 ships. They have weapons that can crack planets. What can your 47 ships do against that?" Sergeant Park laughed, but not in a mean way. "Lady, 47 ships is more than nobody showed up with. Sometimes you don't fight because you can win. You fight because it's right." They reached the government building, which was made of the same beautiful crystal as everything else. Inside, Yolter showed them displays of the hegemony fleet. The images made Dr. Kim's heart sink. The enemy ships were massive and deadly. Their weapons could destroy cities with single shots. "This is what we face," Yolter said. His skin patterns were dark blue with sadness. "The hegemony of Korth, 4 races that work together to take worlds from weaker peoples. They have never been defeated. There's a first time for everything." Park said. Ninwi pulled up more information. "They gave us 30 days to leave. 18 days remain. Their advanced scouts have already been seen at the edge of our system." Dr. Kim studied the data. The hegemony was led by creatures called saurids, who looked like giant lizards that walked on 2 legs. They were joined by 3 other races, all of them focused on war and conquest. Together, they had taken dozens of worlds over the past century. "What kind of defenses do you have?" Dr. Kim asked. Yolter's patterns went almost white with shame. "We have mining equipment. Some transport ships. No weapons. We never believed in violence." "Never?" Park asked. "Our people believe that violence corrupts the soul," Ninwi explained. "For 800 years we have chosen peace. Even when others attacked us, we found ways to solve problems without fighting." "That's beautiful," Dr. Kim said. "But sometimes peaceful people need others to fight for them." Yolter looked at her with his large, kind eyes. "You would really do this? Fight a war you cannot win for people you just met?" "Yes," Dr. Kim said without hesitation. "Why?" Dr. Kim thought of her home on Earth. She thought of the stories her grandmother had told her about wars long ago, when good people had to fight evil ones. She thought of all the times in human history when someone had to stand up to bullies. Because if we don't, who will you turn to next? If everyone stands by and watches while the strong crush the weak, then we're all guilty. At some point, someone has to say, "No more." Yoltra's skin patterns began to glow with colors Dr. Kim had never seen before. Ninwia's patterns matched. They were both showing something that might have been hope. "What do you need from us?" Ninwi asked. "Everything," Park replied. "We need to know your world. We need to understand your technology. We need you to trust us. And we need you to be ready to fight alongside us," Dr. Kim added. "We can't do this alone." Yolter was quiet for a long moment. Finally he spoke. "My people have never raised weapons against others. But if humans are willing to die for our world, perhaps we can learn to defend it." As they left the building, Ninwi pulled Dr. Kim aside. "There is something you should know about our world. The crystals in our buildings are not just decoration. They are connected to every Rilani on the planet. We can communicate through them instantly, across any distance." "That could be useful," Dr. Kim said. "More than useful," Ninwi replied. "If we can learn to coordinate with your ships, we might have advantages the hegemony doesn't expect." As Dr. Kim and Park flew back to the fleet, They saw Rilani working in the fields below, families gathering for evening meals, children playing games in crystal gardens. It was a world worth saving. Think we can do it? Park asked. Dr. Kim looked at the peaceful scene below, then up at the stars where the hegemony fleet was coming. I don't know, but I know we have to try. Above them, Captain Lee was already preparing for war. The first hegemony ships appeared at the edge of the system like dark shadows against the stars. War Master Velkoth stood on the bridge of his massive command ship and looked at the scanner reports with confusion. What are those small ships doing? There? He asked his tactical officer. They appear to be human vessels, War Master. 47 ships total. Velkoth was a saurid standing 8 feet tall with dark green scales and yellow eyes. He had conquered 12 worlds for the hegemony and never lost a battle. He had expected to find the Rilani world empty, its people already fled in terror. Humans! Velkoth's voice was like gravel in a metal bucket. The new species from the Rim? What are they doing here? Unknown, War Master. They positioned themselves between our fleet and the planet. Velkoth laughed, a sound like rocks falling. 47 primitive ships against my 212? This will be over quickly. But Captain Lee Taman had no intention of fighting a normal battle. In the days since arriving at Kepler 442b, the humans had worked day and night with the Rilani to prepare for war in ways the hegemony would never expect. Sergeant Park Jun-ho stood in a converted mining facility on the planet's surface, teaching Rilani civilians how to use mining lasers as weapons. The Rilani were quick learners, but they seemed uncomfortable holding anything that could hurt someone. Remember, Park told a group of young Rilani, you're not trying to hurt anyone. You're protecting your families. There's a difference. 1. Of the Rilani, a farmer named Talcor raised his hand. His skin patterns showed uncertainty. But our beliefs say that violence corrupts the soul. Maybe, Park replied. But what corrupts the soul more? Fighting to protect innocent people or standing by while they're murdered. Talcor's patterns changed to show understanding. He gripped the mining laser more firmly. Meanwhile, Chief Engineer Kong Minsu worked with Nunwi to turn the planets. Mining equipment into weapons. The Rilani had massive machines designed to cut through rock and extract crystals. With some modifications, those same machines could be used against enemy ships. Your people are brilliant engineers, Kong told. Nunwi as they worked on a mining platform. You just never thought about using your skills for war. We never wanted to, Nunwi replied. Her patterns showed sadness, but now we must learn. They had turned 12 mining platforms into orbital defense stations. Each one could fire beams of energy powerful enough to damage warships. The hegemony would expect some defenses, but not mining equipment turned into weapons. Dr. Kim Hae-jin made the most important discovery of all. Working with Rilani scientists, she learned that their crystal communication network could do more than just let them talk to each other. It could disrupt enemy communications if used correctly. The crystals resonate at specific frequencies. Dr. Kim explained to Captain Lee, if we can get the Rilani to coordinate their bioluminescence through the network, we can create an electromagnetic pulse that will blind the hegemony fleet. For how long? Lee asked. Maybe 15 minutes? Maybe less? But it might be enough. Lee studied the tactical display. The hegemony fleet was still 3 days away, but their advanced scouts were already in the system. Soon, the real battle would begin. Captain, called his communications officer, we're receiving a message from the hegemony fleet. Put it through. War Master Velkoth's face appeared on the screen. His yellow eyes glowed with confidence. Human Commander, I am War Master Velkoth of the hegemony of Korth. You are in violation of our territorial claim. Withdraw immediately, or be destroyed. Captain Lee looked back at the alien warlord without fear. This is Captain Lee Taman of the human colonial fleet. This world is under our protection. If you want it, you'll have to go through us. Velkoth's laugh was like the sound of metal breaking. 47 small ships against my fleet? You must be insane. Maybe, Lee replied. But we're here and we're not leaving. Then you will die? With the Relani, Velkoth said, and cut the communication. Lee turned to his crew. All ships, prepare for battle. Remember, we're not trying to win a straight fight. We're trying to make this cost them more than they want to pay. The first engagement came sooner than expected. 3 hegemony scout ships tried to slip past the human fleet to scan the planet's defenses. Captain Troy Sunmi of the converted cruiser Bison Defender intercepted them with 2 other human ships. The battle was brief but fierce. The hegemony scouts had better weapons and stronger shields, but the human ships were faster and more maneuverable. Captain Choi used an old smuggler's trick, hiding her ship in an asteroid field and attacking when the enemy wasn't ready. Got one. Her gunner, Lieutenant Song Woo-jin, called out as the first scout ship exploded, but the other 2 scouts escaped back to the main fleet. They carried information about human tactics that War Master Velkoth studied carefully. Interesting, he told his officers. These humans don't fight like the other species we've conquered. They use tricks, deception. We must be more careful. On the planet's surface, the Relani were changing in ways that surprised everyone. Yultur stood before a gathering of his people, his skin patterns glowing with new determination. For 800 years we have chosen peace, he said. We believe that violence was always wrong, but we have learned something new. Sometimes refusing to fight is the same as helping evil win. The crowd of Relani listened carefully. Their patterns showed they were afraid, but also ready to defend their world. The humans came here to fight for us, Yultur continued. They left their homes and families to protect people they had never met. If they can do that, then we can learn to protect ourselves. A young Relani named Corvith raised his hand. But, Elder, what if fighting changes us? What if we become like the hegemony? Yultur's patterns turned gentle yellow. The difference is why we fight, young one. The hegemony fights to take things from others. We fight to protect what we love. That makes all the difference. Ninwi had been working with human engineers to prepare surprises for the enemy fleet. The planet's ring system was full of asteroids. That could be moved with mining equipment. Each asteroid they positioned was like a giant bullet waiting to be fired. The hegemony expects us to defend the planet directly, Ninwi explained to the human tactical team. They don't expect the planet itself to be a weapon. Captain Lee's plan was complex and dangerous. When the hegemony fleet arrived, the humans would appear to retreat, drawing the enemy away from the planet. Then, at the right moment, the Relani would activate their crystal network, disrupting enemy communications while the modified mining stations opened fire. It was a plan that required perfect timing and a lot of luck. Most military experts would have called it impossible, but Sergeant Park had been teaching the Relani something important during their training sessions. He had taught them that sometimes impossible things happen when people refuse to give up. The hegemony thinks they know how this battle will go, Park told his Relani students. They've conquered 12 worlds using the same tactics. They expect us to be afraid. They expect us to run. They expect us to give up. Telkor, the farmer who had learned to use a mining laser, spoke up. But we won't give up? No, Park replied. We won't. And that's going to surprise them. As the full hegemony fleet approached the system, every human and Relani prepared for the battle that would decide the fate of their world. Captain Lee stood on his bridge and looked at the odds display. 212 enemy ships, against 47 human vessels and a planet full of people who had never fought a war. Sir, his tactical officer called out. The hegemony fleet is dropping out of hyperspace. Lee took a deep breath. All ships? This is it. Remember what we're fighting for? On the planet below, Nenwi connected herself to the crystal network. Every Relani on the world joined with her, their bioluminescent patterns beginning to pulse in rhythm. They were ready. The battle for Kepler 442b was about to begin. The hegemony fleet filled the space around Kepler 442b like a swarm of metal locusts. 212 warships, each one larger and more heavily armed than anything in the human fleet. War Master Velkoth stood on his command bridge and smiled with satisfaction. Begin the attack, he ordered. Destroy the human ships first, then we will deal with the planet. But Captain Lee had expected this. As the massive enemy fleet moved forward, the human ships suddenly scattered in all directions. Some flew toward the asteroid belt, others dove toward the planet's moons. A few actually seemed to run away entirely. "What are they doing?" demanded Sub-Commander Krex, Velkoth's second in command. "They're afraid," Velkoth replied, "as they should be. Chase them down, destroy them all." The hegemony fleet split up to hunt the scattered human ships. This was exactly what Captain Lee wanted. Instead of facing the entire enemy fleet at once, his ships could fight smaller groups. The humans knew their ships weren't as strong as the enemy's, but they were faster and their crews were willing to take risks. Captain Choi Sun-mi piloted her ship, the Bizen Defender, through a field of asteroids with 3 enemy cruisers chasing her. Her ship was damaged and her shields were failing, but she had a plan. "Lieutenant Song," she called to her weapons officer. "Are the mining charges ready?" "Yes, Captain." "All 12 charges are attached to asteroid 77 Alpha," Choi smiled grimly. "Perfect. When I give the signal, detonate them all." She led the enemy ships deeper into the asteroid field, pretending her ship was too damaged to fight back. The hegemony cruisers followed eagerly, thinking they had an easy kill. "Now!" Choi shouted. The mining charges exploded, turning the massive asteroid into thousands of deadly fragments. The explosion caught all 3 enemy ships, destroying one completely and badly damaging the other 2. Similar battles were happening all over the system. The humans couldn't win straight fights, so they used tricks, traps, and desperate courage to even the odds. But the real surprise was still to come. On the planet's surface, every Rilani was connected to the crystal network. Ninwi stood in the central communication chamber, her skin glowing brighter than it ever had before. Through the crystals, she could feel the thoughts and emotions of every member of her species. "Are you ready?" she asked through the network. The answer came back from millions of voices speaking as one. "We are ready." Dr. Kim Haijin monitored the process from a human observation post. She had studied alien biology for years, but she had never seen anything like this. The entire Rilani population was working together as a single organism, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing in perfect harmony. "Electromagnetic pulse building," she reported to Captain Lee over the radio. 90% 90-5 100%. Pulse ready to fire. "Wait for my signal," Lee replied. The captain was watching the tactical display carefully. The hegemony fleet was spread out across the system, chasing human ships. Their communication network was busy coordinating the hunt. When the pulse hit, it would cause maximum confusion. "All human ships, this is Lee," he broadcast. "Operation Crystal Storm in 10 seconds. 9. 7. Warmaster Velkoth was feeling confident. His ships had destroyed 6 human vessels and damaged many others. The primitive fleet was clearly losing. Soon, he could focus on destroying the planet. "Warmaster," his communications officer called. "Out. I'm detecting some kind of energy buildup on the planet's surface." "What kind of energy?" Velkoth demanded. "Unknown, sir. It's coming from the crystal formations. The readings are off the scale." Before Velkoth could respond, the planet seemed to explode with light. Every crystal on the surface glowed like a small sun. The light was so bright it could be seen from space, and with it came an electromagnetic pulse that swept across the entire system. Every hegemony ship went dark at once. Their communications died, their sensors went blind, their weapons stopped working. For 15 minutes, the most powerful fleet in the galaxy was helpless, but the human ships were ready. They had shielded their electronics and positioned themselves to take advantage of the chaos. As the hegemony fleet drifted helplessly, the humans attacked. Sergeant Park Junho led a boarding party onto a disabled hegemony destroyer. His team included both humans and Rilani volunteers who had learned to fight. They moved through the enemy ship's corridors, capturing key systems while the crew was still trying to figure out what had happened. "Remember," Park told his team, "we're not here to kill everyone. We're here to make sure they can't hurt innocent people." The Rolani and his team, including the farmer Telcor, nodded understanding. They had learned that sometimes protecting others required violence, but they didn't have to enjoy it. On the planet's surface, the modified mining stations revealed themselves. What the hegemony had thought were simple mining platforms were actually powerful weapons. They opened fire. On the disabled ships, their mining lasers cutting through enemy hulls like knives through paper, the battle turned in minutes. War Master Velkoth watched in shock as his fleet took massive damage from weapons they hadn't even known existed. "How is this possible?" he roared. "They're primitives. They're farmers and miners." His communications officer managed to restore partial contact with other ships. "Sir, we're getting reports from across the fleet. The humans and Rolani are working together. They've turned the entire planet into a weapon." But even as the hegemony fleet struggled to recover, more ships appeared at the edge of the system. At first, Velkoth thought they were reinforcements for his own fleet. Then his tactical officer gave him news that made his blood run cold. "War Master, those are not our ships. We're detecting vessels from the Vegan Republic, the Theshan Collective, and several independent systems." Captain Lee received the same report and couldn't believe it. "How many ships?" 37 confirmed, his sensor officer replied. "More arriving every few minutes." The largest of the new arrivals was a Vegan Republic cruiser commanded by Captain Na Sujin. She was a human who had left Earth years ago to serve in alien fleets. Her ship was more advanced than anything in Lee's fleet. "This is Captain Na Sujin to Captain Lee," came the transmission. "I heard humans were making a stand against the hegemony. Couldn't let you have all the fun." Lee felt hope rising in his chest. "Captain Na, what's your status?" "I've got 12 ships from various species. All volunteers. We heard about what you were doing and decided the galaxy needed more people willing to fight bullies." More messages came in. A squadron of Etherian ships had arrived to help. 3 independent mining corporations sent armed transports. Even some Federation members, who disagreed with their government's decision, had come to fight. Word of the human intervention had spread across the galaxy. Most species still wouldn't get involved, but some individuals and small groups had decided they couldn't stand by and watch the strong crush the weak. War Master Velkoth found himself facing a very different situation than he had expected. Instead of fighting 47 primitive ships, he was now facing almost 100 vessels from dozens of different species, all united by one thing: they believed the Rolani deserved to live. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet." Captain Lee's face appeared on the screen. Behind him, Velkoth could see officers from many different species working together. "War Master Velkoth," Lee said calmly, "you came here expecting to find a helpless world. Instead, you found something the galaxy hasn't seen in a long time. You found people willing to fight for what's right, no matter the cost." Velkoth's yellow eyes burned with rage. "You cannot defeat the hegemony. We have conquered 12 worlds. We have never been stopped." "Maybe," Lee replied, "but today you're not just fighting one world. You're fighting an idea. The idea that good people shouldn't have to face evil alone." As if to prove his point, more ships dropped out of hyperspace. The volunteer fleet was growing by the hour. Velkoth looked at his tactical display. His fleet was damaged and outnumbered. Worse, he was no longer fighting a simple conquest. He was fighting a symbol that was inspiring others across the galaxy. For the first time in his career, War Master Velkoth began to wonder if this was a battle he could win. The battle for Kepler 442b had become something nobody expected. What started as a simple conquest had turned into the largest space battle the galaxy had seen in 50 years. Ships from dozens of different species filled the space around the planet, all united by one impossible idea: that sometimes you have to fight for what's right, even when you can't win. War Master Velkoth stood on his command bridge and watched his tactical display with growing anger. His fleet still outnumbered the defenders, but barely. Worse, more volunteer ships arrived every hour. The story of the human intervention was spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. "Sir," His communications officer reported, "We're receiving surrender demands from 17 different species. They're telling us to leave Rilani space immediately." "Impossible," Velkoth growled. "The Federation Council approved our claim. This world belongs to the hegemony." "The Federation Council is meeting in emergency session," the officer replied. "Early reports suggest they may reverse their decision." Velkoth Hess' scaled hands clenched into fists. In 8 years of conquest, he had never faced anything like this. Other species always ran when the hegemony arrived. They submitted to superior firepower or retreated to safer space. They didn't gather together to fight impossible battles, but humans were different. And somehow, their stubborn refusal to accept defeat was making other species remember things they had forgotten. Things like courage, like standing up to bullies, like protecting the innocent. Captain Lee Tae-min coordinated the defense from his flagship, the New Soul. His bridge was crowded with officers from a dozen different species, all working together despite having never trained as a unit. "Captain," called his tactical officer, "the hegemony is massing for another attack. All their remaining ships are forming up." Lee studied the display. Velkoth still had over 150 ships, including several massive dreadnoughts that could destroy planets. The volunteer fleet had 93 ships, but most were smaller vessels with basic weapons. "This is it," Lee announced to the mixed crew. "Final battle, all ships, prepare for engagement." On the planet's surface, the Rilani were ready too. Ninwi stood in the crystal communication chamber, connected to every member of her species. Their bioluminescent patterns pulsed in rhythm, creating a light show that could be seen from orbit. "We are with you," she transmitted to the human fleet. "All of us together." Dr. Kim Haijin monitored the planet's defenses from her station. The modified mining platforms were armed and ready. The asteroid weapons were positioned. The electromagnetic pulse system could fire one more time, but after that, the crystals would need days to recharge. "This has to work," she whispered to herself, "for everyone." The final battle began when War Master Velkoth ordered his entire fleet to attack at once. Over 150 warships charged toward the planet, their weapons lighting up space. With deadly fire, the volunteer fleet met them head-on. Ships from the Vegan Republic fought alongside human cruisers. Veshan frigates covered independent miners. Species that had been enemies for centuries worked together to protect a world most of them had never heard of a week ago. Captain Choi Sun-mi, her ship badly damaged from earlier battles, rammed her vessel directly into a hegemony dreadnought. The explosion was visible from the planet's surface. "For the Rilani," she broadcast as her ship died. "For everyone who believes in doing what's right." Her sacrifice opened a gap in the enemy formation. Captain Nasujin led a squadron of mixed ships through the opening, striking at the hegemony command vessels, but the enemy was too strong. Despite their courage, the defenders were losing. Ship after ship fell to hegemony fire. The volunteer fleet was being destroyed. Sergeant Park Jun-ho, still aboard the captured hegemony destroyer, made a desperate decision. Instead of trying to escape, he turned the enemy ship toward Velkoth's command vessel. "All Rilani, this is Park," he broadcast. "It's been an honor serving with you. Take care of each other." The captured destroyer, loaded with hegemony explosives, slammed into Velka's flagship. The explosion damaged the enemy command ship badly, but didn't destroy it. Velkoth survived, but he was injured and angry. "Enough," he roared. "Prepare the planet killer weapons. If I cannot have this world, no one can." 3 massive hegemony ships began charging their main weapons. These were devices that could crack a planet's crust and boil its oceans. In 10 minutes, Kepler 442b would be nothing but floating rocks and steam. Captain Lee realized what was happening. "All ships attack the planet killers, everything you have now." The remaining volunteer ships threw themselves at the 3 massive vessels. They couldn't stop all 3, but maybe they could stop 1 or 2. As the battle raged in space, something extraordinary happened on the planet. Every Rilani connected to the crystal network at once. Not just those in the communication centers, but every single member of their species. Children in schools, farmers in fields, elders in their homes, all of them working together, Yulter felt at first. A warmth spreading through his mind as millions of his people joined their thoughts together. They had never attempted anything like this before. They didn't even know if it would work, but they had learned something from the humans. Sometimes you try the impossible because it's the only option left. The planet began to glow. Every crystal formation on the surface lit up like a star. The light was so bright it hurt to look at even from space. And with the light came something that had never been seen before, a bioelectromagnetic pulse. Powered by an entire species working as one, the pulse swept across the battlefield like a wave of pure energy. But this time it was different. Instead of just disrupting electronics, it carried something else. It carried the thoughts and emotions of every Rilani on the planet. Their hope, their gratitude, their love for their world and for the beings who had come to defend it. Every ship in the system, friend and enemy alike, received the transmission. For just a moment, everyone in the battle felt what the Rilani felt. They experienced the beauty of their world, the peace of their culture, the simple joy of growing things and building things and living without hurting others. It lasted only seconds, but it changed everything. On the Hegemony flagship, War Master Velkoff staggered as the wave hit him. For the first time in his life, he felt what his victims felt. He experienced the terror of facing annihilation, the sadness of watching your world burn, the desperate hope that someone, somewhere, might care enough to help. His tactical officer, tears streaming down his scaled face, turned to him. "Sir, I can't do this anymore. These people, they're just trying to live." Across the Hegemony fleet, similar scenes were playing out. Soldiers who had followed orders without question suddenly understood what those orders meant. Pilots who had bombed cities saw the faces of the people below. Commanders who had conquered worlds felt the weight of all that destruction. The planet-killer weapons powered down. Not because they were damaged, but because the beings operating them refused to fire. War Master Velkoff looked at his display and saw his fleet falling apart. Ships were withdrawing from battle. Crews were refusing orders. Some vessels were actually switching sides. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving surrender offers from the volunteer fleet. They're offering to let us withdraw if we agree never to return." Velkoff thought about his options. He could try to continue the battle, but his own crews were in rebellion. He could destroy the planet out of spite, but that would make him a monster in the eyes of the galaxy. Or he could do something he had never done before. He could admit defeat. "Open a channel to the human commander," he ordered. Captain Lee's face appeared on the screen. His ship was badly damaged, but his eyes were steady. "War Master," Lee said, "are you ready to end this?" Velkoff looked at the human who had started all this trouble. This primitive being from the edge of the galaxy who had somehow convinced dozens of species to fight an impossible battle. "How?" Velkoff asked. "How did you do this?" Lee smiled sadly. "We didn't do anything special. We just remembered that good people shouldn't have to face evil alone." "The Hegemony will not forget this defeat," Velkoff warned. "I hope not," Lee replied. "I hope you remember that there are people in this galaxy willing to fight for what's right. And next time you think about conquering a peaceful world, I hope you remember what that costs." The Hegemony fleet withdrew from Rilani space that day. They left behind 18 destroyed ships and a reputation that would never recover. Word spread across the galaxy that the mighty Hegemony had been defeated by farmers, miners, and a handful of humans who refused to give up, but more importantly, something new had been born. The volunteer fleet didn't disband after the battle. Instead, they formed something called the Mutual Defense Compact. It was a simple agreement. No member world would face annihilation alone. If one was threatened, all would come to help. 6 months later, Captain Lee stood on the balcony of Yulter's home and watched Rilani children playing in the crystal gardens. Their skin patterns flashed bright colors as they laughed and ran. Above them, human and Rilani technicians worked together to repair the mining platforms that had saved their world. "Do you think it will last?" Yulter asked. His old friend, Dr. Kim was with them, along with Ninwi and several other human officers.